Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into this stack of sources you've shared with us.
Yeah, it's quite a collection. These guides, glossaries, notes. It feels less like a textbook.
Definitely. More like keys, maps, signposts maybe, pointing towards an exploration.
Right. Think of this deep dive as us taking those keys together.
Opening the door, seeing what's inside. And the mission really is to sift through it all, pull out the most potent nuggets.
Offer you a shortcut, essentially, to being genuinely well-informed on what's a really fascinating mix of ideas.
We're plunging into the world of Walter Russell, for one.
And exploring some pretty profound Eastern wisdom traditions, too.
And then seeing where key scientific concepts might resonate or maybe even challenge our usual understanding of reality.
As your sources put it, it's an endless exploration of the universe and of yourselves.
That phrasing alone sets the tone, doesn't it?
It really does. It's not just about understanding the out there, but how that connects to our inner experience.
Yeah, the sources aren't just like dumping information. They're inviting a different way of seeing things.
And central to all this, from the sources anyway, is this figure, Walter Russell.
Right, American polymath, 1871 to 1963. And when we say polymath,
We really mean it. Painter, sculptor, architect, composer, author. And then he saw himself as a scientist and a mystic.
it's important to highlight, though, he was famous in the arts, definitely respected there.
Oh, for sure. But his scientific and cosmological ideas, they were, well, pretty far outside the mainstream back then.
He was operating in a very different space.
And the sources really focus on this pivotal event in his life, the cosmic illumination, May, June 1921.
And this wasn't just a flash, it's described as a 39-day altered state. Profound.
According to his accounts, yeah. He felt he perceived the fundamental nature, the laws of the universe directly. A complete cosmic vision.
Accessing the source of all knowledge, as he put it.
And that experience, that illumination, became the wellspring for basically everything he talked about later.
Yeah.
His core concepts.
Right, and the sources lay out some of those key Russellian ideas. The first big one seems to be the universal one.
Yes, that's his term for the single underlying conscious principle. The mind of God, sometimes he called it. The source of everything.
The absolute undivided reality.
And flowing from that universal one is the fundamental dynamic, rhythmic, balanced interchange.
That seems absolutely central to his whole system.
It really is, this perpetual rhythmic exchange between polarized opposites everywhere. Everything's constantly giving and re-giving.
Charging, discharging.
Expanding, contracting, always in this state of dynamic balance and flow.
Which then leads to maybe his most radical idea, conditioned light.
Oh, absolutely counterintuitive. He's saying what we see as solid matter, it isn't solid substance at all.
It's light energy.
Exactly. Light or energy that's been slowed down, compressed, patterned into temporary forms by cosmic thought and rhythm.
So matter is just a temporary state of motion in light. Wow, it's the pattern, not the stuff.
It completely flips our everyday perception on its head, doesn't it?
It really does. He also talks about the 0 point.
The still balanced center within any ways, any system, the point of rest, potentiality, tied to the nature of space itself.
The stillness that motion comes from and returns to.
And his dynamic energy forces, things like electricity, magnetism, he didn't see them as just impersonal.
More like living expressions.
Living, spiraling, polarized expressions of that universal one in action, driving form, driving dissolution.
And finally, the vibrant sea. Space isn't empty for him.
Not at all. It's a pervasive, generative medium, a field of untapped potential.
And conditioned light matter is condensed from this sea.
Condensed from it and is eventually reabsorbed back into it. So the universe isn't happening in space. It's happening within and from this active medium.
He tried to capture all this in his first major book, The Universal One, back in 1926.
Yeah, including all those intricate diagrams trying to map out this, frankly, incredibly complex cosmic model.
Now, one of the most striking parts of your sources is where they draw parallels between Russell's vision and concepts from Eastern wisdom.
Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism specifically.
What's fascinating here is how these ancient concepts, developed millennia ago, seem to resonate so strongly with Russell's modern, though unconventional, vision.
It's almost uncanny, isn't it? Like different cultures, different times, arriving at similar deep insights about reality, just using different languages, different metaphors.
They really do seem to point to incredibly similar underlying principles, like Russell's universal one.
You see echoes in the Hindu concept of Brahman, right? The ultimate reality, the source.
And in Taoism, the Tao, The ultimate principle, the way, that underlying unity.
So distinct traditions, miles and centuries apart, but converging on this idea of a fundamental unity.
And Russell's conditioned light, this idea of matter being an illusion.
That feels remarkably similar to Maya in Hinduism, that creative power making the world of forms, often seen as creating an illusion of separation, of solidity.
Or sunyata in Buddhism, emptiness, the lack of inherent independent existence, things being temporary, dependent.
It's profound that they all arrived at the same counterintuitive conclusion. The solid world isn't quite what it seems.
Then Russell's rhythmic balanced interchange, that constant dance of opposites.
Beautifully mirrored in the Taoist yin and yang, those complementary, interdependent, constantly transforming forces.
The universe as this dynamic interplay and his dynamic energy forces.
Very much akin to prana in Hinduism or chi in Taoism, that universal life force, the vital energy animating everything.
And this whole idea of the universe as an expression of the divine, like a cosmic play or dance.
Strongly aligns with Leela in Hinduism, the divine spontaneous creation, this playful manifestation.
Like the universe is born out of creativity, exuberance.
And Russell's perpetual cosmic cycle forms appearing, dissolving back into the zero point or the vibrant sea.
Parallels concepts like samsara, the cycle of birth, death, rebirth in Hinduism and Buddhism.
And Anicca, the Buddhist concept of impermanence. Everything conditioned is always changing, always in flux.
Change isn't an accident, it's fundamental.
And finally, this idea of the universe built on vibration. Rhythmic motion, Russell's conditioned light.
It resonates powerfully with Nada Brahma in Hinduism. Sound is God, or consciousness is sound. The universe arising from primal vibration.
These ancient traditions offer such a rich, symbolic language for principles Russell tried to articulate with his diagrams and terms.
It's like different maps describing the same mysterious territory.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's pivot, as the sources suggest, into modern science. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Seeing where the rigorous inquiry of science might touch upon, or at least raise similar kinds of questions.
To the terrain described by mystics in ancient texts, using totally different language, of course.
Right. It's definitely not a one-to-one match. We should be clear about that. But there are some intriguing resonances.
Like Russell's vibrant sea, space not being empty, but this generative medium.
Well, that finds a modern echo in quantum field theory, QFT. In QFT, particles aren't tiny things, they're excitations, like vibrations, in underlying quantum fields that fill all of space-time.
So the vacuum isn't empty.
Not at all from that perspective. It's seething with potential energy fields, which feels, well, reminiscent of a vibrant sea, doesn't it?
It really does. And linking Russell's conditioned light the universe as vibration back to science.
That brings up quantum mechanics, specifically wave-particle duality.
Where things act like waves and particles.
Depending on how you look. It hints that reality might be fundamentally vibrational, wave-like at its base.
And things like cymatics, showing vibration, creating patterns.
Exactly. And resonance, how systems respond strongly to specific frequencies.
So the idea that vibration and frequency are fundamental to form, it keeps popping up. Ancient philosophy, Russell, modern physics labs, it's quite striking.
It is. And the emphasis on cycles, too. Russell's rhythms, the huge timescales in Eastern Yugas, Kalpas.
Science sees cycles in cosmology, right? Star life cycles, galactic rotation.
Even some models propose cyclical universes. Cycles seem inherent to the cosmos at every scale science observes.
Then there's the massive topic, consciousness, a thread through all three.
Definitely. Russell puts it right at the foundation. Universal one. Eastern traditions explore Brahman, Atman, Vijnana consciousness, knowing.
And science, grappling with it through neuroscience mainly, studying altered states, brain waves.
How perception is constructed by the brain. And they're hitting what's called the hard problem, which is not just how the brain works, but why subjective experience, that feeling of being, arises from physical stuff. It's a huge question.
Raising debates. Is consciousness just emergent or fundamental panpsychism?
And the whole debated role of the observer in quantum mechanics, does looking change things?
Science is asking questions about subjective experience now that sound surprisingly similar to questions mystics asked millennia ago.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it does raise an important question, doesn't it? Are these diverse fields, mysticism, ancient philosophy, modern science, maybe starting to converge on a more unified understanding of reality? Even if they use different tools, different languages.
Even things like the mind-body connection.
Right, linking Eastern ideas like Pranacci to scientific findings. Placebo, nocebo effects,
Psychosomatic illness, neuroplasticity.
psychoneuroimmunology, PNI, how the mind affects immunity. It shows our mental states really do influence our physical reality.
It feels like that rigid wall between mind and matter is getting, well, much more permeable.
Exactly. And even concepts like complex systems, nonlinear dynamics, fractals.
How intricate patterns emerge from simple rules.
Yeah, they seem to echo Russell's universe built on these fundamental rhythmic principles. Simple rules, complex outcomes.
And the scientific quest for a unified field theory, a UFT.
That single, elegant framework for all forces and particles.
It really does seem to parallel that philosophical, mystical search for the single underlying principle.
The universal one, Brahman, the Tao, that drive for underlying unity, it's there in both modes of inquiry.
Let's touch briefly on Russell's legacy. He kept working for decades.
Founded the University of Science and Philosophy with his wife, Lau Russell, at Swannanoa, that beautiful estate.
Lau Russell was crucial, wasn't she? Helping structure and communicate his complex ideas.
Absolutely. And he wrote later works like Atomic Suicide,
Applying his principles to real-world issues.
critiquing nuclear fission, proposing alternative energy concepts based on universal rhythms. He wasn't just theoretical.
And that intriguing story about Nikola Tesla, mentioned in the sources,
Yeah, Tesla apparently saw something significant in Russell's work, energy generation perhaps.
and urged him to lock his knowledge away for 1,000 years, believing humanity wasn't ready.
Whether literal or symbolic, it adds this fascinating layer. Hints at the power, or maybe the danger, of these unconventional ideas if misunderstood.
And despite being largely overlooked by mainstream science back then, your sources note this recent resurgence of interest in Russell.
It's happening just as people are exploring these very connections. Science, spirituality, consciousness, alternative energy. His ideas are finding new relevance.
So what does this all mean? We've taken this journey, guided by your sources,
Seeing Russell's unique vision born from that illumination,
found striking echoes in ancient Eastern wisdom.
and seen how it raises questions relevant to modern science.
The sources consistently highlight these core themes, don't they? A universe as a dynamic, rhythmic process.
Almost like a cosmic song or dance, not just a machine.
Fundamentally conscious or unified at its base.
In reality, where matter isn't solid stuff, but this temporary pattern of energy, conditioned light.
And there's that strong message about integration of knowledge.
Yes, the value of combining insights, inner vision, ancient wisdom, science, art, weaving them together.
For a more complete, holistic understanding, no single perspective has the whole map.
The synthesis is where the power lies, the sources suggest.
It really does seem the sources are pointing us towards a universe that's far more connected, dynamic, maybe more mysterious and alive than we usually assume.
And this deep dive ultimately brings us back to you, the listener. The sources aren't just presenting information.
They're strongly encouraging your own continued exploration, your journey. They even suggest something called the Dragon Trial.
Oh, yeah. In the Appendices, it's like a personal challenge.
Commit to seeking understanding from a source or perspective you don't normally explore.
Maybe pick up that science book on fields, or contemplate a philosophical question from a different tradition, or even just engage with art or music differently.
Engage openly, look through that different lens, hear that different language.
And see how it might change your perspective
Yeah.
on something familiar, or maybe on reality itself. Keep weaving your own understanding.
The sources really reinforce this theme of the enduring mystery, the beauty of existence.
Yeah, the universe isn't a problem to just solve and put away.
It's this infinite, unfolding, beautiful mystery to be explored with awe, with wonder.
An invitation to participate in the cosmic dance, not just observe.
And to leave you with a final thought from the sources, something they call the dragon's final whisper.
A concept to carry forward. The greatest journey is the one you take within, for it is there you will find the universe you seek.
That's a truly beautiful and fitting thought to end on.
It really is.
Thank you for bringing this absolutely fascinating source material to us and allowing us to deep dive into it with you.
It's been quite an exploration.